Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games just like Starfield, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course stream for fun. I did release an economic update. I will do those every once in a while. I know it's a gaming channel, but hey, the economy matters and it's affecting people. So I'm just giving the information out there. It is quite depressing. So if you're already depressed, you probably don't want to listen to it. But otherwise, it's out there for those that are interested. So today we're going to be talking about Starfield. I've finally played about 55, 60 hours. And I feel like I have a good enough handle on the game that I've played enough to actually kind of have my final thoughts. And I know a lot of other people have already put it out there, and people basically know what they think or what they hate about Starfield. I just want to share my thoughts for the channel for those that are interested. And if you're not, hey, that's okay. I'll see you on the next vid. For those that are staying, so I'm going to be talking about the general game, the gameplay, the things that they did. I'll be talking about the improvements they did from their previous Bethesda games, and then I'll be talking about the things that are still annoying, and then just final thoughts on the back. So here we go. So as a game, comparing to everything else, it's better than many. Starfield is still one of the better games that released this year. There's not a lot of other games that have done better, in my opinion. The sheer scale of the game is huge. The fact that this is probably one of the best Bethesda games that they've made, as like smoothness, less buggy, that kind of thing. Because as a Bethesda game, it's one of the better ones they've made. And it's the smoothest ever, absolutely. Playing Oblivion and Fallout 3 and 4 and 76 and Skyrim, oh boy, bunch of bugs in all of those. So they did fix them over time, which is great, especially 76 and Skyrim. Those were some of the buggiest games, in my opinion, they've ever made. And but this one was actually done really, really well. So I'm glad that they had their delay of 10 months, because I feel like that really helped increase the quality of their game. So it was nice, they added, learning from their previous games, they still had the gunplay in there, they still had powers, they still had companions, the sheer size of exploration and discovering things, the crafting system, being able to mod weapons and gear. So they took all of this from older Bethesda games and shoved it into this one. And they also added some stuff too. The things they added were that they added ships, space combat, shipbuilding, boarding ships. And we even saw an expansion some on outposts. And so they really worked on putting a ton of kind of content and variety and different facets and mechanics in the game that really can make the game pretty fun, and you can kind of play however you'd like. And you also know that ultimately your decisions are going to matter, and so you kind of got to think about how you're maybe going to do stuff. Or maybe if you want to spice things up a little bit, you can kind of tell, hey, if I do this, it's going to make the game a little more interesting. And that happened to me once, where I fired on a FC ship, and oh my word, it was hours to undo that mistake. It was horrible. The game mainly focused this time on main quests, with side quests along the way. So games before, they were very much pure exploration. They still had a story and a quest line, but usually we would get off track, right? Squirrel, and for the next 50 hours we're playing something else and be like, oh yeah, we got a main quest. Well, with this one, with Starfield, it really didn't feel that way. If you kind of went out and just tried to explore and stuff, it would actually get very monotonous, very boring, and annoying actually quite quickly. If you stuck to the main story, there was actually stuff to do. There was character development there. You got to learn more about the lore of the game in Starfield and kind of the current history of what's going on between different factions, or even learn about different factions. And a lot of the gameplay too was fun, and then you would run into side quests along the way, and that actually really flowed really well. So if you didn't go main quest line with Constellation just to start with, the game probably got pretty boring pretty quick. And I feel like that probably happened to some people, is that maybe they started Constellation, and this is kind of boring. For me, it was probably about 10 or 12 hours in, I was getting more excited at that point, and kind of things were happening in the game. But maybe they started with the main quest line and then wanted to do something else, and it's just like, well, this is kind of boring, I want my money back. And so yeah, that was something that was very different. There was some things too where, like, kind of the level design, there was a repeat of buildings and structures. So you feel like once you'd been there a few times, you were like, oh great, this is going to be like No Man's Sky in a way, where we're just going to see this continued repetition of buildings, right? And this in a way was worse because there's no trees, there's no fancy mountainous structures in the distance. It's all generally flat, right? And there's really not much to see between here and there. And so we saw a lot of repeated labs, a lot of repeated abandoned mines and caving systems, and the games too were also quite frustrating and just too small and not really worth visiting, unfortunately. And then there were a lot of other kind of like installations for like power and things like that. Like the places were believable, but the places themselves weren't necessarily exciting. You know what I mean? And so like in Skyrim or some of the Fallout games, you felt like you were kind of moving throughout this environment. There was stuff to see, and things to do, and people to run into, or even seeing some random happenstances on the road, or just as when you were coming into a village. And they still had some of those things in Starfield, like when you're working through Freestar quest line. But yeah, there was just more kind of downtime, more kind of runtime, and a lot of things you were kind of seeing again or repeatedly, and it would kind of make the game kind of boring. Something else is that there's a lot of running. And so something I heard from someone explaining is that a lot of games have about a 40-second window to jog from one place to somewhere else. And so you can generally kind of run into content and things to explore and do. In Starfield, it's anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes. And so that's a lot of running, and you do a lot of running. And not having any type of a buggy to help get you there was just kind of frustrating. The surveying, too, kind of got annoying after a while and frustrating. Just like No Man's Sky. It's just like, oh, scan, bloop, except, again, with Starfield, it was a little more realistic. You'd have to go to maybe different biomes or different sides of the planet to try to find all of the little creatures and all of the, plants and everything. There were definite improvements to the game. And so the storage capacity. You had yourself, your companions, and your ship. And you could also expand your own capacity like normal, but you could also expand your ship's capacity to get to a point where it's just freaking ridiculous. It's like 3,000, 4,000 cargo hold, along with skills and everything else. So you could really carry as much crap as you wanted. The fact, too, that you were still being able to run while encumbered. We didn't have that in previous games. You kind of were slowed down, or maybe you could only walk, or it was pretty brutal. You got rid of stuff really quick. This time, if you were encumbered, you just used oxygen faster, which was nice. You could still run, you could still jog, but you'd have to take more time to actually kind of catch your breath and do it more often, which I really liked that. And they also had, again, with the O2 and the CO2 gauge, they kind of had a give and take system there to kind of balance out being able to just jog forever, or sprint forever, or being able to do certain moves in combat, like melee or whatnot. And also being on the type of planet really changed how that also affected your O2, along with your skills. And so you could really beef up your kind of, quote, stamina in a way if you wanted to, or leave it to something more realistic like how most of us sit on the couch and play the game that way. And so it was kind of cool how they decided to do the encumbering and or over-encumbered thing with just the oxygen gauge. I felt that was actually really nice. There was a wider variety of weapons. This was a great improvement. And different types of ammo. I still have ammo that I have, but I don't have any guns that go to it yet. I haven't found any. And also ammo, again, I'm so glad they kept this from some games, is that ammo weighs nothing. So in some games, ammo actually weighed something, which for somebody like me was absolutely horrible. And so you'd be more incentivized to use melee, because you could use that infinite amount of times, right? As long as you sharpened it. But for ammo, for like a space game, you'd want it to be basically weightless, because for someone like me, we're going to have tens of thousands of rounds ready to put down range towards something that we need to kill. Also, another improvement was that these had the largest handcrafted spaces than any other Bethesda game. In places like New Atlantis, yeah, that is really big. The Red Mile is also very big. There's a ton of area to explore out there when you actually go for a run. And there's some other areas too, like Freestar, where there's actually a lot out there. So we don't know if this is necessarily, specific full handcrafted areas, or that some things were handcrafted in a procedural generation environment, like a building maybe, or some type of structure. We don't know exactly how that's broken down, but there was a lot of handcrafted areas, which was cool. And the procedural generation made just the amount of places and the amount of areas and things to explore just seem incredibly huge. I highly doubt anyone is going to explore all or even visit all 1,000 planets. And this was something that was nice too. Maybe you'd walk into a building, or maybe you'd walk into some kind of big structure in like Fallout 4, for example, but you really didn't know if it was really worth it. That was kind of the fun. Well, if you're not sure if you really want to land on a planet because there's so many that aren't overly exciting, you could just scan the planet. And that was really nice. And there's also abilities too to kind of enhance this, where you can at least see like main locations, or maybe there's a ship now in orbit or something. And also some of these environments would change. Maybe there would be a ship there for a moment in time, or maybe some type of space station, but maybe a ship wouldn't be in orbit forever. It would actually change over time. And so that was actually a really cool feature that they had, is that, hey, if you didn't want to waste your time, you necessarily didn't have to in that way, and that was really nice. Let's see, the ability to search for crafting materials. We had an indicator where we basically, a certain recipe or something, we could click on that and then be able to look for the materials in the environment. So you didn't have to look through every single nook and cranny. You basically could just kind of use a breeze over with your scanner and be like, oh, that one's important, that one's important. Oh yeah, and this one is the one I actually need. And so that really streamlined the process of figuring out what you needed, so that way you wouldn't get over encumbered as quickly. If you still picked up everything, you certainly could, but the game had indicators, the game had ways for you to not have to play that way and be frustrated within the first 30 minutes of the game. The companions, they didn't just have kind of a specialty at this point, they also had skills. You could also assign them to outposts, you could assign them to your ship or whatever, which Sarah Morgan is permanent on my ship. She's kind of getting annoying. And but that was really nice. We also see a bigger increase in companions than any other game I can think of. There were quite a few in Fallout 4. But yeah, I feel like there's way more companions available. And even as you explore, or being able to hire people for your crew, for your ship, or for multiple ships, I mean, the sky's the limit on how many people you basically want to hire, too, for, like, even outposts. And so that was really, really cool. That was something that was pretty nice to see. The modding. And so being able to mod weapons, being able to kind of get what you want. It is difficult because you have to work through the skills to get there. But you can mod your suit, you can mod your weapons and stuff. And I'm really glad that they carried that over from Fallout 4. It was really nice to see that. Fallout 4 had a lot. I feel like in some cases the mods were easier to get to. But the skill system kind of really slowed you down a little bit. The fact that you have to run so long to actually get something to do something so that you can get experience. It just takes longer to get experience, generally speaking. But yeah, still the improved modding was really nice. And this wasn't just modding just for certain stuff. There was also an expansion of like recipes, food, medicines. There was a lot of stuff you could work on and actually build, along too with stuff for your outpost, which is really cool. I felt like too there's more rare and legendary gear with actually more perks. It wasn't just something you would come across. So this also kind of devalues the amount of legendary gear. But basically, when I see yellow or gold color, I'll be like, yes, I got something. This is great. Let's take a look at it. But even then, it still doesn't mean that it's necessarily better. So overall, I do feel like this is an improvement to still get better gear, generally speaking. But I feel like it is kind of like Division 2, where just because it's color-coded a good item doesn't mean it's actually an item that you want to use or need. So that was one improvement, but also an annoyance at the same time. Companions too, they felt a little less 2D. There's maybe a little more lore backed up with them. The facial expressions were actually really nice, and the body language. But yeah, there was kind of a little bit more to develop with the companions, which was cool. There's also more skills, and these skills in some cases had a bigger impact on gameplay. So depending on what you decided to do first, it would kind of affect Fallout to a degree, but generally speaking, people were either good guys or people were bad guys. And you could pretty much easily tell within the first 5 seconds if they were a good guy or bad guy or not, and kind of who you're supposed to help and all that kind of stuff, like the Lone Free Rangers in Fallout. But in this one, I felt like things were a little more varied, and there was kind of a wider range of possibilities with your skills. And so depending on what you picked and how often you tried to level things up, which that was an improvement too, we actually had a kind of a task that we had to complete. And I personally enjoyed that because it gave me practice with certain skills, or it gave me opportunities that I otherwise wouldn't have. And it made me kind of reach for something instead of just saying, oh yeah, I just got to grind this out to death and actually just try to do it. But it actually gave kind of like a progression system for skill leveling so that you just wouldn't immediately go God mode on something and then just absolutely destroy everything. There was kind of some lag time there. Maybe some people didn't like that, but honestly, I thought that was an improvement too. There were also longer side missions. So these side missions weren't just like 30 minutes or an hour. I had one side mission, Failure to Communicate, where it was hours. And I had such a fun time with that. And just to be able to bump into that and dig in and just figure and see the amount of care and effort that they put into just generally a lot of the missions, main or side to begin with, was just really cool. So there is hundreds of hours of content in Starfield, folks, and I really appreciate that. Something too is that this is going to be a modder's playground. There's basically 900 planets that they're going to be able to play with. There's also a lot of things that they can improve and change in the game. And some people will say, yeah, Bethesda isn't willing to fix their game. They're going to let the modders do it. But it's like, hold on. This is the only company that actually allows modders in the first place. No one else does this. And honestly, I think the more people that can actually come together and create content for a game, the better it is. And I won't say, actually I take that back, I won't say it's the only one, because Minecraft does this too, and that's why Minecraft is still relevant today. When the Hunger Games came out, people built a whole bunch of maps that were like Hunger Games related, right? Did tournaments and stuff. People have made different, texture packs, different characters for your avatar, different colors. They've expanded on things as things continue to be updated for Minecraft. Minecraft has become an incredible game. And I can't wait to play with my kids when they get old enough, because there's so much to do there compared to when it first started. The sky is the limit. And modders still continue to make stuff and build stuff today. And two, modders actually earn money. I'm sure, the main company, Xbox, they do too, through Minecraft. But generally, you can actually now get content creators, and they can actually have a revenue stream of making content for something that they're passionate about, something that they love. And I think that's really cool. I'm also hoping that comes to Starfield. And some modders, they're just making stuff for free. And so we'll have that too. But we know that we're getting modding tools sometime in the future, probably next year. And this isn't just going to be for PC, this is also going to be for console this time. And so I'm really excited to hear what they have to say about that. Hopefully they keep to those plans, because I'm ready to have some of these mods on PC or on Xbox, which I think would be fantastic. And this also is just going to keep Starfield more relevant for a longer period of time, as there's such a playground, such an open canvas for creativity. And again, the more people can actually get involved and make content, the better the content can be. Because if I can have a team of 500 working on content, or I can have teams of, hundreds of thousands of people making content that they're passionate about, I would rather have the hundreds of thousands, folks. We all would. So some of the things that were annoying or frustrating. Again, the running and the distance of things. So this gets old pretty quick. Now, there were some long treks in Skyrim. There were also some long treks in like Fallout 3 or Fallout 4 or even Fallout 76. But at least there was other stuff to look at. And the fact that we don't have that, man, it really makes jogging, that extra kilometer or that extra couple kilometers, it kind of sucks. And we don't really have the ability to travel. Now, if we had to run everywhere in like Elden Ring, oh my gosh, that would be awful. It's great that we have a horse so you can get from A to B pretty quickly. We still do have a fast travel system, but initially running there is still pretty brutal sometimes. It's just very dark, very gray. So a lot of the times there's just not a bunch there. It is pretty easy to get most of the scan data that you need. I think it is cool too that we have different biomes, so not every biome is going to be the same on every planet. So maybe in one area it's snowy, maybe one area it's tropical, and maybe one area it's just kind of Serengeti or desert, And I do think that's really cool. I should probably add that as an improvement. It's not all just generally the same environment. Instead of taking kind of a valley like in Skyrim and expanding it into kind of some different elevation changes or the looks of different things, these planets all have kind of generally different biomes, except for, of course, where Neon is, because it's all water. But generally speaking, there's different areas, and I do think that's pretty cool. But yeah, the running distance, man, ugh. It makes me not want to go to stuff. It makes me purposefully want to skip things because the time versus reward, generally speaking, isn't that high. Surveying is boring. And there's also scanning bugs. There's some things where I'm trying to scan it and it won't let me scan. And yeah, it's annoying. You also don't get a ton of money, generally speaking, from survey data. So surveying is just kind of a moot point. If you want to, it's cool, or it's a good way to kind of earn some money in the beginning of the game. But yeah, once you get going, you just really don't scan anymore. It's not really a focus. Unfortunately, caves are now junk. And caves were really exciting with Fallout. Some probably too in Skyrim, but definitely Oblivion. I mean, you had like the crypts and the temples and the whatevers, and it's dark and gloomy down there, and you got skeletons and whatever, and like I loved just the handcraftedness of caves and tunnels and underground ruins and stuff, and those were so fun to explore. But the caves in this one are just very generic and small. There's really nothing there. And again, with like the labs and the abandoned mines, a lot of them feel the same. So I feel like they kind of missed an opportunity on that one, which is kind of a bummer. The learning curve at the start of the game. So not everybody probably had issues like I did, but oh my goodness, just even figuring out that we had status effects now, which was pretty cool. That was another benefit improvement that they had, the status effects, the different ailments and diseases. Oh yeah, there was a whole nother section. The additional of drugs and abilities that you could get from certain things, the amount of powers you can have, which there's 25 of them in the game, and then of course the new Deathclaw, aka the Terrormorph. Oh my word, if you've never fought one of those, that's like melee combat with psychological warfare. It's horrible. Yeah, I just avoid those now. But anyways, so yeah, they've made some great improvements, but like the learning curve at the start of the game, like we didn't even know we could click on our character in the middle of the start menu, right? We knew we could get to our inventory and the map and our ship and blah blah blah, but there wasn't any silhouette highlight around our character, so we didn't know we could click on it. And it was, I think Lion had to tell me, he's like, hey, you can actually click on your character and like see your stats and stuff, or see the ailments that you have. And I was like, really? Oh, dude, that's awesome. That's great. Thank you. And I probably never would have figured that out, to be honest, until they made an update or something. So there were some things that were... It would have been nice if there was a little bit more tutorial. I will say something that was nice was that they spread the tutorials out. So just when you got to them, the game would share what the tutorial was, and it was fairly easy to find the tutorials in the menus, because they were highlighted well enough. But yeah, some things with the menus too, it's just like, oh my gosh, okay, I gotta go through menu A, B, C, go back to B, now I gotta go to D, and F's over here, and now I can finally do what I'm doing. And so yeah, there are some shortcuts, like hotkeys, but like I had to figure out how to use hotkeys because I wasn't reading the screen close enough. But yeah, there were some things that just need to be streamlined a little bit with their menu system. Some things are hard to figure out or read or even discover that you could, like the ailments that you have, or that you could even take a look at your character, and other things too. It just feels so menu-y. You have to go through so many just to complete a small task. And so that was, that was annoying. That was quite annoying. Again, repeated buildings, repeated structures. I've seen so many of the same cave, so many of the same lab. It is getting old. And so once you've been there, you kind of seen it already. Makes you want to kind of hurry up and plow through it as quick as you can, just so you can move on to the next thing to get to something more exciting. But this is one of the bigger elements to the game, along with just jogging forever to get from A to B, that makes the game boring. And I think this is the biggest struggle that people had. The fact that there's no mini-map, especially when you're on a planet, especially when you're at like New Atlantis or Freestar or Red Mile, there's no map whatsoever. And this is incredibly frustrating because I still get lost in New Atlantis. I'm getting a better handle on it, but yeah, I wish I had a mini-map. There's still no reason for food in the game. In most cases, it really doesn't do enough. It doesn't do much, I guess, if you need it in a pinch. But, once you level up some of your medical skills, which some of it I'm not on purpose, just to make the game a little bit more difficult, there's really no reason for food. You can find all the medical packs you need. It's easy to find the medical stations hanging on the side of a wall. Pretty much every single facility, station, constellation has them. And, all you gotta do is use your eyeballs. They stand out pretty well. They're always almost next to a door, too, or on some crates. So yeah, food's pretty worthless. The loading screens. Sometimes that can get kind of annoying. Just moving through a door can make you have a loading screen. And it's just, oh yeah, this takes me back 15 years. So if they could have figured out a way to do without loading screens or make it maybe a little more exciting or something, that'd be kind of nice. But this is a smaller point for me. Again, the big ones are the running and then the repeat of buildings and structures and no mini-map. Those ones are quite frustrating. Another thing that's annoying is that we only get one DLC. This is the biggest potential space for a game we've ever had, and they're only making one DLC. And that is quite frustrating. I mean, they could literally make 10 and not even be close to filling up the game. They could make 25 DLCs and not even be close. So I still hope they do plan to support this, but I hope they don't lean too heavily on the modders. I hope they do fix and implement some things themselves, and maybe even continue on with future DLC if there's enough demand for it. But we know from the Xbox leaks that there's only, so far, one DLC for Starfield, and I think that's a missed opportunity for Bethesda. So we'll have to see what they do with the modding community, and yeah, we should be getting an update on that next year. Another annoying thing for me is early access. So this doesn't necessarily have to do with Starfield. This is just a new trend that we're seeing now in games this year, is that early access is now just, you pay a few dollars for a few extra days. And, for Starfield, you got 5 days early access for $30. And they're purposefully delaying it just to give you the opportunity to spend money. And that's not really creating value, in my opinion, because the game's already ready. It's already ready to launch. It's good to go. It's, they literally just have to release it. But the fact that they're allowing you to pay, money that basically goes to nothing for an extra 3 to 5 days I think is pretty ridiculous. And I think, your guys' money could be better spent somewhere else. Again, I am glad it's an option, but I worry that if this is adopted enough, that eventually it won't be an option, and it will increase the game price once again. Because now we are pretty consistently seeing the push for games to now be $80 to $100. And it's not just DLC content anymore. It's like, ooh, early access. Play it early. So this also makes the opportunity to hype up a game to death and then have the game be trash. Like Redfall. or some people like Gollum, right? Best foot forward, shut up, give me money, and enjoy your crappy game. And I worry about that now becoming the standard. So I don't want companies to provide early access. I just want them to have a launch date and just release it, which is nice. There's also not an opportunity to do this physically with like GameStop or some other store. You have to do it digitally only. And so the thing that I also don't like is that this pushes more of a focus toward digital games. And ultimately with digital games, we don't own them. They do. With physical, you at least own your game, right? And certainly for some games, I really want to own it. So eventually I'll buy a copy of Starfield. I'll eventually buy a copy of Liza P. But right now with Game Pass, I'm enjoying it for what it is. But there's already enough incentives and enough pushes to go digital. And this is just going to be another one. So I really don't like early access for those two reasons. Again, it's your guys' money. You guys can pay for what you wish. That's okay. But I'm just worried about the future to where now it kind of becomes forced. It becomes necessary. And I don't really want it to go that way. Remember, folks, we got to think ahead to protect our gaming industry, our hobby. So my final thoughts. This game is ultimately decided by expectations against either other Bethesda games or against other space games. And so for you guys, which ones were you? How did you judge the game? Because for those that judged the game against other Bethesda games, I feel like they really enjoyed the game. For others that judged it against other space games, I feel like they didn't enjoy it as much. Get rid of the over-encumbrance. It's like, Bethesda makes Bethesda games, folks. Just like Activision makes Activision games. Epic makes Epic games. So on and so forth. They're not going to change what has made them billions of dollars. They're going to keep making the same type of games. Ubisoft is another example, right? Skill trees, so much clutter on the HUD, indicators on the map, etc. And it's like, it's going to be an Ubisoft game, you know? And so I feel like in some cases, people's expectations were misplaced. And that made them see the game through a different lens that wasn't necessarily fair. And so they got hurt because their expectations weren't met. And it's also, I'm sure, frustrating for the developers and for Todd Howard too, where it's just like, well, the game wasn't meant to be seen or, perceived that way, but oh well, there's nothing we can do about it. So remember, folks, that your own perceptions, your own perspective, it plays a huge part in how you respond and react in your life. And so make sure that your perspective is clear, that it's not clouded or tinted, or that you have rose-colored glasses on. Make sure your perspective is accurate, that it doesn't just benefit you, that it also benefits others as well. Let's see, 2, Starfield will always have a modding community, just like Minecraft. So we've also seen mods for, like, Skyrim. I mean, like Skyblivion. That's a game that's coming out relatively soon. And it's pretty impressive with what Skyblivion is. But we also see that we're going to get a remaster of Oblivion. So I feel bad for that modding community because they've been working on this game forever. And, it's quite frustrating. Hold on, folks. I got a phone call. Let me see who it is. Oh, potential spam. Okay. Yep, no idea. Don't recognize it. So, yeah, I think the modding community is going to be huge. Again, every modder is going to be a passion project for them. They're going to try to make it better, improve it. There's going to be more content, extra missions. I even hope other factions, expansions to ship creation, outpost creation. We'll see. We'll see how much there is. I mean, the biggest modding community still, I think, is Minecraft. And the potential for Starfield to be another Minecraft where it's still relevant in 20 years is possible. And I hope that's the case because the canvas is so big, so wide, so open people can really create a lot of big stuff. So we'll see what happens with that. Starfield will filter expectations for Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5. So again, some people really didn't like Starfield because the over-encumbrance, the jogging for too long, and that also was an issue in Fallout 76, but I don't think people remember that because you would jog for a long time in some cases before you would actually get anywhere in F76. But again, it's just like people don't remember that. It's just like, oh, that's just a Starfield problem. No, that's not just a Starfield problem. There's more to see in F76, but some of the distances were pretty far. And so again, we should have accurate expectations, because we already saw what Fallout 76 was like. And again, they made the area of exploration bigger, but things are still going to be pretty far apart. Luckily, not everything, and you can fast travel, which is nice. But yeah, this is going to color, I think, expectations for Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5 for some people. Early access is here to stay. We had 2 million that had early access. And so, unfortunately, I think early access is going to be permanent, just not for Bethesda, but just for every gaming developer and publisher that wants to do it. So we're going to see this more in the future. I just hope it stays as a choice. Allowing modders is best for the gaming industry and keeps games alive. Again, we just talked about this. But like Minecraft, there were really cool ones for the original Star Wars Battlefront. There was like the Death Star map, and there's some other creations of like a real Hoth and stuff like that. So the modding community can really make a game fun, can really add a lot of quality to something. Yeah, I really hope Bethesda really allows people to just mod the crap out of Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5 and etc. Because yeah, I think the potential is there, and that's what gets me excited for it. There's going to be more modding on console, thankfully, and then this is going to put more passion back into gaming overall. So if companies allow people to mod, and they give them the tools to do it, we can have people that can actually have a revenue flow from the mods that they're selling, and we can and have a free market that way, which is great. And we can also keep games relevant for longer instead of just this grindy loot box random roll system. Because again, we don't want a closet full of digital stuff we're never going to wear. We want actual content. We want stories, we want characters, we want factions, we want new tools and weapons. We want new places to explore. And that's what modders build. So this is what we want, folks. I hope the gaming industry gets to see Minecraft, gets to see Starfield, and is like, hey, we can literally make royalties off of other people making content, and we can keep our game relevant easy for 10 years. I hope that comes to the gaming space. That would be great. Also, lastly, I'm worried about changes over at Bethesda in the future. So when Todd Howard's gone, which will be after Fallout 5, who's going to take over? Because his leadership has made some of the best games and franchises in gaming history. Morrowind, or people are like, oh yeah, Morrowind was great. Morrowind was so good. The first 3D Fallout game, which is Fallout 3. It was incredible. That was my first Bethesda title, and it's like, frick yeah, Bethesda, take my money. I love their games. Also, a newer generation of developers. A lot of the folks at Bethesda right now are older. You know, they're in their 40s or 50s or like late 30s at the youngest. And when that rolls over with a new generation, I am afraid we're going to see more Gollum, Forspoken, and Saints Row games. And I don't want that. I want care and quality and passion to stay in the gaming industry, and I just don't think new developers today know how to do that. Because they didn't read books, they didn't watch good movies. They watch TikToks, folks. And we don't want TikTokers making content, because it is fun and entertaining, but there's no substance there. And ultimately, I think this is why the games suck today, is because it's all about entertaining, keeping you grinding, and then making as much money as possible. And they don't know how to make characters interesting. They don't know how to make good writing, good story. And so the games suck. The games suck. And this isn't just a Bethesda problem. This is other studios too. And again, when we get the new generation of devs in for everybody, and I think we're starting to see that because we had a lot of retirements during COVID, I think it's going to be pretty gnarly for a while. Is that we're going to have some pretty bad games, generally speaking, across most of the studios. And I think this is why some of the studios are so shocking. It's like, ooh, hey, this is made by Gearbox. Oh, wow. Really? Tiny Tina's Wonderland? That's great. Oh, wow, hey, this is going to be a reboot of this. Oh, wow, it's that? That sucks. Oh, hey, it's going to be from the creators of the original Dead Space from Visceral Games. Yes! Let's go, Callisto Protocol. Oh, that's what it is. Okay. Oh, hey, we're going to be getting a new Gran Turismo game. And they've monetized it to death. Oh, hey, this is Arcane Studios. Hey, they make good stuff. Oh, it's Redfall. I mean, do you see my point, folks? I don't want young devs. Can I just put it simply? Because they're screwing our games over. So thanks for tuning in, folks. Those are my thoughts on Starfield. Generally speaking, I'd probably give it a strong 7. It's a strong C+ for me. It's improvement. It's expanded. There's tons of things to do in the game, but there are some things that really hold it back from some of the things that we're used to in other games. And it is impossible to not have bias, whether bias against Bethesda or for Bethesda, but I really try to do that here on the channel. But yeah, it's a strong 7. I still really enjoy it. I'm still going to keep it. I'm still going to play it. I'm still going to buy a physical copy when I give up Game Pass. And I'm excited to see what the developers and modders do with it still, because we still have, from Todd, he was explaining how this is like a 10-year project game for them. So they want to support it for a very, very long time. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what they do, because I definitely think they could improve it. And I'm sure the modders to some extent will. Just how that works out, we'll have to see. Hopefully it's amazing. And with that, folks, you can always find me too at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee. And you can also always find me at Gaming Garbage 22 over at YouTube. Everything is archived over there. I have playlists. If you're interested in Starfield, I have some hats that I'm selling, and when they're gone, they're gone. You can go and let me know if you'd like one. They're $29 plus shipping, and for shipping, I use pirate shipped so I can make it as cheap as possible. I sent one to a guy in Georgia, and it was $4.50. So pretty cheap shipping. It's cheaper than Amazon. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. Hang in there. And yeah, if you need a place to rest or just want to keep up with news, or there's also some co-ops that I'm doing too. Hey, go ahead and like and sub. And also, if you guys do enjoy the channel and content, please share with other people, because ultimately I think that's how this channel is going to grow. And I'm not interested in monetization. I'm just wanting, to just share my passion, and to just expose the trash in gaming, and to just absolutely praise stuff when the gaming industry does it right. So, if you like your content, go ahead and share it with others too. And with that, folks, I'll see you on the next one.